quo. We gonna buck the status quo. Oh, bucking the status quo. We gonna buck the status quo. Bucking the status quo. We gonna buck the status quo. Oh, bucking the status quo. We gonna buck the status quo. Bucking the status quo. We gonna buck the status quo. Oh, bucking the status quo. We gonna buck the status quo. The foundation leads the fight. The warriors lead the tribe. When the beat drops and the spirits rise, we find the truth behind the disguise. They want us to go away, only our hearts do we obey. The foundation leads the fight. The warriors lead the tribe. When the beat drops and the spirits rise, we find the truth behind the disguise. They want us to go away, only our hearts do we obey. No ranks, no chains, just unity. One tribe, one light, one destiny. No ranks, no chains, just unity. One tribe, one light, one destiny. Bucking the status quo. We gonna buck the status quo. Oh, bucking the status quo. We gonna buck the status quo. Bucking the status quo. We gonna buck the status quo. Oh, bucking the status quo. We gonna buck the status quo. No ranks, no chains, just unity. One tribe, one light, one destiny. No ranks, no chains, just unity. One tribe, one light, one destiny. Bucking the status quo. We gonna buck the status quo. Oh, bucking the status quo. We gonna buck the status quo. Bucking the status quo. We gonna buck the status quo. Oh, bucking the status quo. We gonna buck the status quo. Bucking the status quo. We gonna buck the status quo. Oh, bucking the status quo. We gonna buck the status quo. Bucking the status quo. We gonna buck the status quo. Oh, bucking the status quo. We gonna buck the status quo. Bucking the status quo. We gonna buck the status quo. Oh, bucking the status quo. We gonna buck the status quo. Bucking the status quo. We gonna buck the status quo. Oh, bucking the status quo. We gonna buck the status quo. Bucking the status quo. We gonna buck the status quo. Oh, bucking the status quo. We gonna buck the status quo. The foundation leads the fight. The warriors lead the tribe. When the beat drops and the spirits rise, we find the truth behind the disguise. They want us to go away, only our hearts do we obey. The foundation leads the fight. The warriors lead the tribe. When the beat
Welcome back to another episode of the Grunt Style Foundation Irreverent Warriors podcast. We are so glad that you have joined us and you're back. We are in here in the Grunt Style Foundation studio. So excited to be with you. This is a beautiful, beautiful Friday. I hope it's beautiful where you are. I hope you're excited about what you're going to get into this weekend. I am joined by, of course, Will Wisner from the Grunt Style Foundation and Corporal Todd Nicely. Corporal Todd Nicely served with 2nd Marine Regiment in Afghanistan and Iraq. A ton of combat experience and a fantastic book that we'll talk a little bit about. But Your Choices Change Lives. And Todd is living the transformation that someone goes through when they transition.
That was my beauty wave, my beauty pageant
Beauty
wave.
queen.
Yeah.
That, I like that better than your other one where it goes the other way.
Well, it goes right or left. So
Yes, love it, love it. But first, let's jump right into Todd. So thanks for joining us again, man. I know you're fresh back from the Capitol. What was going on there?
so I was up at Jefferson City for Veterans Appreciation Day. My Congresswoman Renee Reuter had asked me to go up there and do it, and I did, and that was kind of cool. You know, they took the time to appreciate the veterans that were there. But I also ran into the Lieutenant Governor and have a chance to be in the Missouri Veterans Hall of Fame. So
Wow.
that's kind of a cool thing to think about, you know, being as young as I am and have a chance or a shot to be in that. That's pretty amazing. They've only done a few classes so far, but to be in one of those earlier classes would be amazing.
Yeah, you totally deserve it. I know your combat record fairly well at this point, so yes, absolutely, you deserve it. You're the real deal. Tell me about, I know you just got back from Focus Marines Foundation Retreat. Tell me a little bit about that. What did you guys go through that time?
Correct. So it's the same for me every time. I get to watch people's lives lighten up and you know, have them feel like they have another sense of purpose again. Because when they walk in on Saturday, they're all head down, no one knows each other, and then by Saturday when it's time to leave again, everyone's got these big smiles and they know they're headed in the right direction now. So if anybody out there listening is having a hard time, I would recommend looking up focusmarines.org. They take all veterans post 9/11. Doesn't matter if you were combat or not. It's something that that changed my life, and I believe it could better other people's
It
lives
seems to be
as well.
extremely popular, Todd. I know last time you were on, there was several alumni from
Yes,
that program
yes.
that was commenting, and the comment section was going on, and nothing but positive things to say about that program. So.
Yeah, they don't give up on you. So once you go through, like, it's not over. They have 3 classes every month where you can relearn the material, or they have new material.
Yeah.
Along with just a buddy check-in where everybody that has been through the organization can get on and chat with each other and hang out for an hour. You know, it's pretty cool.
That is cool. And how did you come into that program anyway?
Oh man, I came into that program. It took them 8 years to track me down, but I finally decided to do it because I was at wit's end. I had no idea what to do anymore. I'd tried rehab. I'd tried all the therapists. I've tried everything.
I think it was After your suicide attempt.
Yeah,
I
it
think.
was definitely after my suicide attempt, but that was 5 years or 3 years after my suicide attempt because I went through. I thought college was going to be the cure all.
Got it.
Well, that wasn't it either, and so I was at my wit's end, and finally I caved in and went in to see what it was about. I had a backup plan to leave, and they asked me a question that changed my mind and kept me in my seat. So
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, you know, the weather is now beautiful. Spring is definitely in full force here in Missouri now. It's about time to start hitting the rivers and all that. You coming on the float trip with us?
I am definitely going to be at the float trip.
Yeah, right on. Well, there you go, everybody. If you want to come hang out with Todd, come join us out on the Current River. What's the dates on that, Ty?
June 5th through the 7th, irreverentwarriors.org. If you want to join us down on the Current River in the Ozarks, we're doing a 3-day amazing float trip. The cost for veterans is $65. And yeah, it's going to be phenomenal.
Yeah.
That includes food, boat, tent site, all that
Yeah,
stuff.
now we've got the whole campground area rented down there, right? It's
It's all going to be veterans, and we've got a band and a DJ and a bunch of stuff for evening activities.
Are you going to do
I as well provide tube towing.
Yeah.
Tube towing.
Yes.
Yeah, no, he does. Todd actually last time on his kayak, he towed a raft behind him the whole entire time.
It was
Yeah.
fun. It was definitely fun.
The name of the campsite is where is it located? What's the name?
Big Rock Candy Mountain.
Big Rock Candy Mountain. Yeah, that's all right.
And Will, speaking of what you've been into, I know you just got back from the Capitol yourself. So tell us a little bit about the different bills you're working on.
Yeah, right now, well, we got a lot of activity going on, man. There is so much stuff popping today in Grunt Style Foundation land. And we're going to bring Derek Blumke on here in a minute and make a huge, big announcement. It's going to be cool. We got a press release that's going out later today as well. But unrelated here in the state of Missouri, or maybe kind of peripherally related, maybe is a better way to put it. We've got 3 pieces of legislation we've been working on. 2 of those have combined into a single bill that is a research bill on both psilocybin, and there was one on ibogaine over on the Senate side. They've combined those into 2. So I was down at the Emerging Issues Committee hearing on Tuesday and testified there.
And so psychedelics for veterans is what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not thrilled with it because it's
Got a ton of strings attached. Would you say?
Well, I wouldn't say string. Well, there's certainly some of that. I mean, the psilocybin, of course, suddenly when we were talking to the folks filing the bill and we were trying to get a commitment on to ensure that they weren't going to put synthetic psilocybin as the focus of study, they need to just study the damn mushroom, man. It's a mushroom.
It's from the planet.
Yeah, what is a synthetic? Well, what they mean by synthetic is what they're doing is they're injecting a single molecule of carbon, usually. I'm not sure what the specifics are on this particular bill, but it's probably that because it's what it is every other single time I've seen this. But they'll take a single molecule of carbon, put it into the mushroom, and say it's a synthetic mushroom. And that's the only one we're allowed to study. And then once that goes through the study
and
purpose,
who owns that patent for that?
The people funding the studies, which would happen to be our good friends over at, Big Pharma and probably some academic institutions too. They're trying to do the good work, but that's what it takes to get this stuff going, to get politicians to buy into it. That's what a crazy world we live in, everybody.
Interesting.
So once this thing comes through, and when the studying is done, when they move forward into the rollout, now we can only roll out the product that's been studied because it's the only one that we studied, even though it's just a mushroom with a single molecule. It's bullshit is what it is.
I feel like they just need to get in the game instead of trying to fight it. Like if Big Pharma is so worried about all these
the disruption
plants and everything disrupting their thing, then just buy into it and do it.
Well, yes. I mean, ultimately, you'd think that's where that would go, but they're never happy with being a team player. They want to own the whole everything.
Yeah, Todd. When it comes to competitive business strategy and revenue, you have to have control of everything. And the problem with plants they are plants. And so controlling a plant, as we have learned over time, is not as easy as it would seem.
Well, they say that they control chemicals too, but look at all the meth labs around the United States.
Well, and that's what it's going to do is, then we're seeing that, pop up with this hemp stuff. It's going to create a new black market. But at any rate, that's a whole other conversation. So, we have the psilocybin bill and we have the ibogaine bill. This bill is to push forward research on the ibogaine alkaloid alkaloid, which is derived from a root from the Tabernathy iboga bush out of the western part of Africa. It's been guarded for since time began, apparently, since from the Batiwi tribe that kind of carries that medicine there, and they're now releasing this into the world. So Missouri is trying to follow Texas's lead and get some studying done on this incredible modality that for those that have engaged in it, it's really effective for neurological things, but particularly as well as addiction. This modality has the ability to reset your opioid receptors to the state of pre-addiction damn near instantaneously. There's no withdrawals. Of course, the ride itself might be a little harrowing, but you're dealing a couple of matter of hours of this experience that you're going through this with. It's very, very powerful psychedelic. But when you come out the other side, your opioid receptors are restored to the state of pre-addiction. So there's no withdrawals, no DTs, there's no relapse, there's none of that. You're just boom, healed, right? But then where I think the bill is falling short is, there's no accounting for the second component that goes along with this modality down in Mexico, where guys and gals are going to receive this treatment, and that's bufo, or 5-MeO-DMT, which is a secretion off the Colorado bufo toad, and it is again another very powerful psychedelic. But the kind of the way that thing operates is kind of slingshotting you out of your body and your ego into this like a near-death experience where you're it's just very spiritual. It's a very
you get like
put into words.
You get like a restart. I've heard you get like a refresh.
Yeah, it's like going and hanging out in God's presence for probably 15 minutes in the real world, but it feels like 4,000 years perhaps, or maybe 2 seconds, or everybody's got a different experience. But when they come back, that's got that complementary component. And pardon me.
Well,
yeah, I mean,
I consider it a reboot, like a computer.
Yeah, yep. And most IW folks that have experienced these modalities told us they're game changers.
Yes, and so and what concerns me here is we're not providing for the bufo side of the house on the research. We're just we're kind of looking at a car, trying to figure out how it runs, but we're only looking at the tailpipe. It's like
that sounds about right.
Yeah. So here we are. But good news on that. I don't know when you want to get into that with the executive order part.
Yeah, we will get into that later in the show. I think next, speaking of modalities, one of the modalities we use here at Grunt Style Foundation and Irreverent Warriors is hiking, and that modality is about building tribe, rebuilding connection, rebuilding your sense of safety, rebuilding your sense of grounding into community. And a lot of folks seem to build off they go to an IW hike, they start to rebuild that emotional safety net around them in community, and then once they're in community, they're able to start going deep and doing some deep work. But until they feel safe, until they feel like they have their tribe again, it's too much to go from completely alone and just white knuckling life to then trying to go do deep work on yourself. It's like it can be too far. So the hike modality can help stabilize folks. And we just had a massive successful hike at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, which Todd, I know that's your old stomping ground.
That's my old stomping ground with 2-2.
Yeah. But 2nd Marine Regiment Barracks, the terrorizer of the barracks, Mr. Todd Nicely.
I was a 2-2 warlord at one point. I think our unit was called the Drug Lords because we had so many drug pops. But
oh man, good old 2nd Marines, man.
But you were talking about this deep work that people have to do after they do that stuff.
Yep.
That's what Focus provides.
They help you get the tribe, the safety, and then you can do the deep work.
Yeah, agreed.
Yes, and that's what we're trying to do as well. So let's jump into it. So there was a wonderful hike. We had over 300 folks show out at Camp Lejeune. Crystal, who is the leader, you'll see her pop up, and there she is. Crystal, man, she is fantastic. She's a former Marine from 2nd Marine Expeditionary Unit, or the 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force. And she is a fantastic leader that pulls together a great hike from, she goes and speaks to active duty units, reserve units, local nonprofits, and gets everybody together and to come out and to support the veterans that are dealing with suicidal ideation and struggling. They come out and they get to re-engage with a support group, re-engage with the dark humor that all of us understand, and make friends and rebuild that emotional safety net. So that was a huge success. Another thing that happened in the past week was in Missouri, they're building a veteran skate park. And we were able to go to the groundbreaking ceremony, but it's going to be a veteran skate park. And here you can see on the video.
Look at those people, man.
Yeah. The state of Missouri coughed up $250,000. The federal government coughed up $250,000, and local funding matched it. And so we've got this skate park that's going to be built. It's going to be the most advanced skate park in Missouri, and it's for J-Dub. There you see, we were at the end of the ceremony spray painting J-Dub, and there's J-Dub's custom skateboard right there, and those are his parents. But J-Dub was a prolific Missouri skateboarder, very famous, who joined the Army. He was in the 1st of the 501st Parachute Infantry Regiment as a part of the 25th Infantry Division out of Hawaii and Alaska.
Yeah.
He deployed to the border with Pakistan and Afghanistan and was unfortunately killed in action in combat operations. So prolific skateboarder, joined the Army, was killed in action in 2011, and now they're building this skate park in his honor, and it's all been funded by all these different organizations. It's just fantastic.
Yeah,
but it should.
A lot of people have showed up there, man. That's fantastic. When is the dedication scheduled for? Because I had a conflicting thing pop up on the Wednesday and I couldn't make it. So when are we actually doing the opening?
Around July 4th.
All right.
And for Memorial Day weekend, we're going to do a special on this episode on the skate park. And we're going to have his buddies that skated with him. And we're also going to try to get some of his veteran buddies to join us. I spoke to his parents. They green-lighted it. Everybody's excited. So we're going to do a special episode where we focus on his name. He was a specialist. It was Specialist Jeff White out of Pacific, Missouri. And he's the one that we're going to honor, and his buddies, Johnny, his wonderful father, Jeff, and John Lanius, and a bunch of other folks have been working to get the word out about this, and it's just fantastic.
We should invite the family and John Lanius on to talk about this in more detail. Just have you you talk all that language. You're a skateboarder.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to get some video of me on a skateboard.
Oh, yeah.
At the park. Someone's going to have to push me. But,
that'd be cool.
You know,
I volunteer.
As long as I can stand on it, we'll be good.
Well,
I volunteer.
Tow people down rivers and boats.
Yeah,
you can probably handle
I'll try it all. Try it once.
Yeah. You only live once, right? Yeah, but that was fun. So the skate park is something that we were invited to be a part of, so we're excited about that. Upcoming this weekend, we've got Atlanta, which has a new chapter that stood up recently for Irreverent Warriors, and that's going to be fantastic. They've got a lot of interesting things planned downtown this weekend in Atlanta, so if you're in driving distance of Atlanta, hit that one up. And then we also have San Francisco. So if you're anywhere near the West Coast, San Francisco hasn't had a hike in quite some time. So this is going to be a fantastic opportunity for anybody on the West Coast. This is kind of a pop-up hike. There's not going to be a San Francisco hike next year. This is a 2026 only opportunity. So jump on it. But the team out there is fantastic. They're prepared and they're ready to rock. And that's also going to be a blast. The weather out there is fantastic.
Man, I love that there's more stuff starting to pop up on the West Coast for IW. Maybe it's a sneak peek. I don't think we formally announced this yet, but I'm going to go ahead and drop it anyway because we're working on it. But we are going to be doing a second round of our integration event this year up in the Pacific Northwest. So we're bringing that out to the West Coast here this year.
Yeah, I'm pumped about that. Yeah. And the West Coast folks can't wait to get to something drivable. All right. But without further ado, I want to jump into Derek. Derek is the director of the War Cry for Change initiative of the Grunt Style Foundation. Derek has been working tirelessly for years and built wonderful relationships with many organizations such as the VFW, and he's been working. He is an IW member. He participates in IW events, and he also runs the Grunt Style Foundation initiative on overprescription. And so I know there's been a lot of new updates, change, announcements made in the overprescription space. And just for those that are tuning in and don't know what we're talking about when we talk about overprescription, 70%, at least 70% of veterans that go to a VA are prescribed psychotropic medications, mental health medications, pharmaceuticals.
Zombie dope.
Yeah, and it's a very high percentage that are prescribed this. And what it kind of did for me is it numbed me out, which in a good way kept me from ending my own life or doing something else terrible. But it also prevented me from ever having joy in my life again. I wasn't able to experience joy. I kind of forgot what that felt like. And then when I went to get off of these medications, I experienced intense suicidal ideation. And so when we talk about veteran suicide and why the numbers keep going up, well, if we're giving 70% of these folks these pharmaceuticals, and then suicide numbers keep going up. And veterans have high access to handguns and all types of firearms. They have a high sense of initiative. They're not going to sit around. They're going to take action. And so it's when you start looking at the data, you're like, wait, should we be giving these medications that cause suicidal ideation to all these folks? So anyway, Derek's here. I don't want to steal his thunder, but what's going on? What's new in the overprescription space?
So, I mean, we've had some crazy updates the past few weeks, but especially last week. We've been working on this for the past couple of years. I've been working on it for 8 years, others for maybe nearly 2 decades, looking at the role of medications and suicides. When you look at the veteran suicide epidemic from 2001 to today, veteran suicide rates for 18 to 34-year-olds, like our youngest veterans, has increased by 108%. And so when you look at that, and then you know that the prescription rates for veterans at the VA is like 70%, or 7 in 10 veterans are prescribed a psychiatric drug. You have to ask, why are the suicide rates doubling? Why do they keep increasing in the way in which they have? If we're treating this many people with these mental health treatments, we should see the exact opposite. We should see declines in suicides. And unfortunately, we've seen the inverse. And so it's raised a lot of questions. I think everybody here has had their own personal experience with this. I was on a 6-drug cocktail and trapped on Zoloft for a year that led me to work on this. And I think what we're seeing is huge hope coming about, because we've been advocating for the passage of the Written Consent Act in Congress, because one of the major gaps in medication prescribing is safety issues and patients being told of the risks of the medications they're prescribed. Multiple VA OIG inspections have found that health systems and a couple health systems, most health records do not show any documentation of informed consent. And so our big
what we're talking about with informed consent is just, hey, I go in to talk to my doctor, and instead of leaving with a bottle of pills that I'm told to take, I actually am informed on what the side effects are, and I have to agree to them.
Right. And so that's the gap, is that this is required by federal law. This is a patient-doctor relationship, and that the doctor, it's imperative that the patient trusts them. And it is what happens when a patient is surprised by suicidal thoughts from one of these medications, sexual dysfunction, dependency like I experienced. It results in a breach of trust with your provider. And what we're seeing is this conversation where we're just saying, okay, well, I documented in your form, in your medical records that we had that discussion. That isn't enough, and it's not really showing that they're actually having that conversation. And so we've been pushing for this written.
I never had that discussion with my providers. So if they put in the forums that we had that discussion, we didn't.
Yeah. No, it's the same thing. And I think you talk to most veterans, they'd say the same thing as well. And that's you go into a room with veterans at a conference or a VFW or Legion Post meeting, you ask how many people who are put on a multi-drug cocktail, or even just the simplest question is, have you ever been prescribed a medication by your doctor where you didn't feel like you were given enough information about that treatment that you're provided? Every hand goes up. And that's the core of this issue. And so that's why we've been pushing for written consent, where the patient and the doctor sign a form saying we discussed all these things, and it's listed on the form, suicidal thoughts, risk of dependency, withdrawal. And so we've been pushing for this for a number of years now. And we got a bill introduced in the House and the Senate last year. A lot of interest across the entire veterans community has been pushing on this. But just last week, our friend John Rich, yes of Big and Rich, the country music band, the one and only, he has had a meeting with VA Secretary Collins, and
with the VA secretary.
Yes, and
okay,
we the VFW and Grunt Style Foundation Leadership have been engaging with John for quite some time, getting him smart on this, getting him to really understand this problem. He wanted to help, and so he reached out to Secretary Collins of the VA. And said, hey, I'd like to talk about mental health and veterans and suicide. And they had this meeting 2 weeks ago where they discussed written consent, the issues of veteran suicide, the role of medications in suicides. And the VA secretary said, John, let me get back with you in a week. Let's talk more. Let me talk to my mental health folks and in-house counsel. And last week, Mr. Rich received another phone call from Secretary Collins informing him that he is going to go forward with written consent VA-wide for psychotropics and box warning medications. So warnings associated with suicide and other major adverse events. That's now going to be written consent VA-wide, and that's an announcement Mr. Rich made on X just a couple days ago. So
Wow. So that means
huge. Like this changed everything. This and is what it really is it really gets us to admit that, hey, we need to be looking at all areas of mental health more seriously, even the ones that we do most commonly think are safe. Maybe we're doing some things wrong. Maybe we can be smarter and safer about this. And so we've got some huge steps forward. Like, it's incredible. The harmed community, those who have been harmed by medications nationwide, are just over the top over this announcement, because this is what they've been pleading HHS for a long time.
good. So, okay. So I'm a veteran. I just got off active duty. I go to the VA for the first time. Tell me what's going to be different, or tell me what the plan is.
So if the discussion comes about with a medication, so if, say, you're diagnosed with PTSD or depression and the doctor wants to prescribe a medication, what's going to happen now is that they're already supposed to be having this informed consent discussion. And some of their arguments was that if we do this written consent thing, we're not going to have enough time. It's going to increase this huge patient load and burden on our patients. We're going to have backlogs and all the stuff. And is what this really does is it actually says, no, that's not true, because you're already having these conversations, you say, so that's not going to increase any time. But is what it's going to do is that the doctor is going to talk with you about the benefits of the treatment, alternative treatment modalities, what would happen if you chose non-treatment, and then they'll also specifically be required to discuss the side effects, and the most serious ones at that. And so if you have a side effect of suicidal thoughts, or you become manic and have a manic episode, or whatever it may be, you now know, and it's confirmed because your doctor signed a form saying, I shared all this with the patient, and you signed a form saying, yes, the doctor walked me through all these things and I truly understand. They then have the abilities to go back to their doctor, because they actually know what the side effects of the drugs are, and say, hey, I'm having this going on. I've been having these panics the past couple of days. I've never had these before. And so rather than getting a bipolar diagnosis, which happens commonly, instead they're like, okay, well, maybe this is an adverse medication event and we just need to adjust the medication or try something else, or maybe do pharmacogenomic testing to make sure that your body properly metabolizes these drugs. So not everybody does. And so the impact on veteran mental health and veteran suicide, I think, is going to be dramatic. And this is one step forward. We need to retrain our medical establishment, our doctors and our clinicians and our counselors, because really they didn't get the right instruction in medical school. They weren't told about all these side effects commonly. They weren't told about dependency with antidepressants in many cases, fresh out of medical school today. So
that would have hurt pharmaceutical revenue, I think, if all the side effects had been discussed and openly discussed.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, the reality is that I would not like to think that any pharmaceutical executive or any person working in a drug company would want their drugs inappropriately prescribed or unsafely prescribed. Because if you are a company and you have a business model, yes, you want to profit, but you also want a customer that is happy with their experience. And I think for far too long that many customers have not been very happy with the results that they've gotten, because a lot of these drugs, antidepressants specifically, it's like a 30% success rate with some of these meds. And so a third of the people say the medication benefited them. That's not very good. You know, it's like if you're going to go to a car mechanic and you needed a part replaced, you don't want it to fix your car 30% of the time. You expect it to be fixed, but it's different.
You know, Derek, I was reading an article on this topic yesterday, and I don't remember which outlet it was or who the reporter was, but they had said something very striking in there that I don't know that I've come across too many times. It was just really in the weeds kind of details. But they were saying that for every 8 people that use these psychotropic medications, 1 in 8 see some kind of relief, generally on the minor side, and the other 7 out of the 8 all experience the horrible side effects. So we have to go through 7 people with terrible side effects to get to 1 person that gets moderate relief. Is that is that how you understand it?
Yeah, I mean, and it depends on the study you find, but most will say either that or something between there or a third or somewhere in between. I think people are surprised by that because, like,
Yeah.
commonly medications is the first course of action before they're even discussing like diet, lifestyle change, what's going on in your life, family doing well, is your work going all right? These basic things of mental health, like if you've got a jerk boss or you got stuff going on at the house and you can't keep up with your bills, those cause mental health issues. And so,
Absolutely.
so
And
they're-
you know what I think one of the big reasons why this is so doggone important. I mean, I think this is up there at or above the PACT Act victory level of achievement of what we've been able to do here. Derek has led us into this promised land, and I think we've got this thing done. When we did the same informed consent with the opioid crisis back in, was it 2016 or so, we saw, correct me where I'm wrong, Derek, keep me honest, is about 25% reduction in those adverse effects and deaths related with these opioids.
Wow.
So if we're using that same model
Yeah.
to gauge this here, this singular action by the Secretary of the VA reinstituting this was at the 1005 form for informed consent to include psychotropic medications. If that earlier model proves true, we should see a 25% reduction in our suicide rates off the top.
Wow.
that's
that would be
I
phenomenal.
would expect if we properly address this, provide the right information to the patients, we get the doctors with the right information and properly trained. I think that's right. Well, we've been talking about that for a while, and I think 25% is conservative. I think if we were actually doing this safely and smartly, this will probably end about 25% of the veteran suicides under VA care. And it just depends on the prescription rate for the population and on the level of impact. But it's going to be dramatic. But this is not done. We're still waiting for the VA to make their formal announcement and having them do a press release. We still need to get the Written Consent Act passed through the House and the Senate and signed into law by the president. This needs to be in statute. That way, if a new VA secretary comes in and says, you know what, I don't like this, I'm going to delete it. They can't do that. Like this is something we need to have cemented in statute and law to make sure this can't just be undone by a pen stroke. It needs to, if they want to undo this, they have to go back to Congress to undo it, and that's what I think is really necessary going forward.
But to your point there, Derek, this is something that has been undone by a pen stroke in the past. This 1005 for people that are playing along on the home version of the game here. Back in 2016 time frame when the opioid crisis was really growing hot, and it was President Obama that had instituted this policy of informed consent with these opioids. And for some unknown reason, maybe you could shed some light on this for us, Derek, but President Biden removed that towards the end of his term.
Yep, it got buried. Is what happened. Is it that?
Why would you not want people to have informed consent?
It wasn't to get rid of informed consent per se, but what it was is deleting the written consent component for patients prescribed opiates for long-term pain management. And that was put into place because they found that patients were finding issues with addiction and overdoses. And a lot of it had to do with informed consent gaps, hence the rationale for doing written consent. But a few years ago, they undid this or basically buried it in another VHA directive. And so it wasn't like front and foremost thought of mind. And what this does now going forward is it reestablishes that, puts that more front and center, and then adds psychotropic medications with FDA box warnings to that list for written consent. And I think it makes sense because, like, if you're given a treatment that could result in your death, historically we look at this for surgeries, anesthesia, when you're being sedated. Yeah, like you need to have be certain that the doctor told you those risks, especially for things that cannot be undone. I think we'd all argue that that same thing goes for medications that could result in your suicide or harm to others, or for some people, this persistent sexual dysfunction when you stop SSRIs. Some people describe that for years and years and years after, their sexual dysfunction remains, describing it as being chemical castration nearly. And so I think that this is a huge move, and I think VA Secretary Collins should be hugely applauded as should all the members of Congress who are currently supporting these actions, and those who are learning about them. Because I think once people get educated on this and smart on this, they'll recognize that this is low-hanging fruit. This is a problem that we can solve together. That doesn't need to be a fight. It doesn't need to be doesn't need to be partisan. It's something that everybody can agree upon. That we can be smarter and safer in the way in which we provide mental health care to veterans and all Americans, for that matter.
Yeah, I wasn't provided any information when I was on SSRIs. I wasn't provided any warnings or information about suicidal ideation, and when I experienced it, thank the Lord, I happened to be in the Caribbean on vacation with my wife, so I didn't have access to handguns, and I didn't feel like I was going to be in that space mentally forever because I'd already experienced suicidal ideation, and so I knew that I just needed to kind of wait through it and not take action. But I was in the Caribbean on this phenomenal, one of the best vacations of my life with my wife, and I was off-ramping from, I believe it was Zoloft or Lexapro, one of the SSRIs, because I was on stuff ever since my first tour in Iraq, really, so for 15 years. And I just was sitting there looking at the most beautiful, I was looking at this bay in the ocean in this gorgeous tropical paradise, and all I wanted to do was kill myself. Wow. And everything in my career was going okay. Everything with my family was going well. Like I just couldn't explain it, but I had this impulsive urge to kill myself. And I was like, this is so bizarre. Like I couldn't even talk to my wife about it. She's like, what's wrong? I can tell something's wrong. I'm like, I just need to be alone for a while. And then I ended up finding out about all of this, and I ended up realizing like, oh, okay. I mean, I felt like I was going crazy because there was no reason why I should want to kill myself that much. But it was that moment, that was like a turning point for me where I stopped trusting pharmaceuticals, and they had numbed me for a long time, as I said, and helped me in the past be numb when the emotions were too much. But then they were keeping me from experiencing the joy of life too. So I'm so glad that I am where I am now, which is I am pharmaceutical free, and I have used holistic modalities to go deeply internal and to work on all my own stuff and go through all my own basement boxes, I guess you could say, both physically and in my head, and get to a place where I can love myself again. And then from there, I could forgive myself and love others, But when I was in that numbness, I was able to go through life every day, but I wasn't able to truly love myself and love others and forgive and all those things, right? Because I had to go do that tough work, that hard work.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely an issue where the modality is worse than the modality of the cure is worse than the problem. That's what I've seen, and this has been a long battle, man. Thank you very much, Derek, for sticking with it. For those that aren't familiar with kind of this story, Derek has been doing this work, kind of a lone little voice in a small little choir that's scattered about the world. This isn't even just unique to the United States. There are advocates from across the planet that are trying to address this same thing, but it's really a David and Goliath story. It's everybody just thinks, once again, here we are, where this is folly. We can't actually get this done. The forces that be that are involved are too powerful. And so we brought Derek on board and said, we'll give you a platform. We got your back. Let's go get this done.
Well, they would definitely need a whole nother show for the list of medications that I've been on and off of.
Right. Yeah, you've lived it too, man.
It's
how they work for you, Todd?
It took them, I don't even know how many years. And from what I understand is that these psychiatrists, they don't even know what's going to work. So they just throw something at you and say, come back in 2 months.
It's a guessing game. It's a guessing game.
I went through all of them.
And that's a wild part. Derek brought this to my attention here a while back. It's always ironic that when you get on these pills and you start going down that weird slippery slope, it's never, let's look at the medication of let's see what the side effects are causing. It's always, oh no, your disease is progressing.
Well, that's the problem is half of these suicidal medications or depression medications cause suicidal ideations. And that's what you're trying to get away from.
Yeah, it's a major loop.
It's a huge oxymoron.
Yeah, I got a question for all of you. Like, when you were prescribed these medications, did your doctor tell you that it works a certain way, or the way it works is it like corrects a chemical imbalance or a chemical deficiency in your brain, solving for depression? Or is it like?
Yeah, I was told that. The way I was naturally wasn't right, and so I needed to take a medication to be normal.
Yep.
That pretty much the same, that my serotonin or whatever, my levels weren't correct, and that I needed to take this medication to correct my serotonin.
Yep.
Well, Todd, actually, to your, because you're kind of, I think, probably newer to this conversation. Hugh and Will and I have been slamming our heads against brick walls for a couple of years now on this. But would it surprise you that the drug industry had actually launched a campaign that this chemical deficiency and that these medications solve for that? And you have to be on these medications the rest of your lives. And turns out that was actually a lie and fraud. Did that surprise you at all?
What do you mean?
You remember if anybody recalls this, the sad little blob cloud commercial from Pfizer in the 90s for Zoloft. And so little clouds moping around, and then he gets
the cartoon drug commercial.
Yep, and he gets the
sad cloud.
neurotransmitters dropping on him and going back and forth and increasing this reuptake inhibitor, so like creating more serotonin in the brain and solving for little sad blobs of depression, and all of a sudden he's happy and fun again. That was all untrue. That was a marketing scheme put out in the late 80s and throughout the 90s and 2000s. Even educating doctors, and doctors were instructed to compare mental health chemical brain deficiencies with like a diabetes and insulin, just like you'd have with any other physical issue. And turns out that was all false from the start. Drug companies knew it. And then it's just, I think in 2022, Dr. Joanna Moncrief, a psychiatrist at the University College London, published a meta-analysis study that showed that there is zero connection between the serotonin deficiency and depression. Zero. There's none. It is unrelated.
There's no connection between serotonin deficiency.
Nope.
And
so when a doctor tells you
depression?
it's going to correct your depression by a chemical imbalance thing, and you may have to be on this medication for a long time, that is not true, and your doctor was likely given poor
Really?
information in medical school.
My head just exploded.
Yeah.
Wait,
Yeah,
so this was just a really good marketing strategy?
Yes.
So-
the
so-
Attorney General
so
of Missouri
good
was
that-
wanting to sue them.
Yeah, so good that
The Attorney
everybody's
General was going to sue him?
Yeah.
Yep.
You were in that meeting with us, weren't you, Derek, when we saw the previous Attorney General and they were wanting to launch suit against him for the false advertising?
Yes, the Attorney General of Missouri was considering a suit against the companies for this because I
Well,
mean,
the doctors are still saying this because that's the way they were trained.
my
it's
doctor
now urban
last year,
legend.
my primary care doctor said this to me last year and said that depression, that this medication corrects a chemical imbalance and whatnot. And I corrected him and I talked him through all the stuff and all the data and the studies. And
You're
he's
probably a real fun patient.
Computer. He's clicking away on his computer, looking at the studies and the news reports, and he says, I guess you're right. And I'm just sitting there like,
Because once someone learns something,
16 years,
it's hard
dude.
to-
Like, how?
it's hard to unlearn something when you've been trained in a classroom. You know what I mean? We were told in a classroom, like, here's the fundamentals of marksmanship. And if someone came and told us something new about tracking a moving target, we'd be like, oh, really?
I'm a huge fan of comedy. I love Norm Macdonald. I think he's the greatest of all time. And Norm tells this really special story where when he was a child, his father had asked him to walk a friend of his father's to the store that was about a quarter mile away, and this man happened to be blind. And so Norm, as a young child, and there's no punchline to this, by the way, so if you're waiting for a Norm Macdonald punchline, there isn't one. But so as he's walking this blind guy to the store, the guy asked him, he's like, hey, will you describe what you're seeing as we walk down the road? And it's kind of a rural area with farms and stuff. And so Norm's telling him, yeah, there's a fence and there's some cows and here's a house where old man Jorgensen lived and he was involved in this and that and it was quite a scandal in the town. The blind man says, like, I don't want you to tell me that part. I'm just trying to imagine, just describe. And so Norm's telling how, he keeps going back to this, trying to insert his opinions and extra narrative into the things that he's seeing. And it's just frustrating this blind guy because he's like, I don't care about that. I'm just trying to get the picture. And it ended up being a big lesson in Norm. And my takeaway from that is, that's something that I need to try to practice is really just see reality for
versus
what it actually is and stop putting our narratives over the top of what we're actually seeing.
The story we attach, because the way as humans we evolved was to understand stories that we wouldn't copy things in order for us to not die, right? We heard the story about this person went into that cave and got eaten by a bear. Well, we want to tell that story so that no one goes into the cave and gets eaten by the bear, right? So stories have kept us alive. But then stories also assign all this extra emotional narrative to everything we're doing, where it's like, is that really the case?
Well, and it's relevant to you, and the story is one way to you, but to the guy you're trying to explain it to, he doesn't want to hear your baggage. He just wants to know the facts. And that's, you got to live in reality. You
That
know?
first step is a doozy.
Absolutely.
Always believe that one.
Yeah.
So,
Well, there we have it, guys. Thank you, Derek. Man, saving the world, dude. And here we are. We've got a pack tack down. We've got this guy's down. I mean, we're making some headway in some short amount of time, and we're going to save some lives, man. This is an important issue. So thank you very much for taking a gamble on us to try to get this over the finish line. And we're not real conventional in the way that we do that. And I hope everybody else involved takes a picture of that. Sometimes all these politics, man, the game's rigged against you, folks. They don't fight fair, and they don't play fair. And if you're going to get something done, you got to play a different game. And all of that starts with a single step. You know, we learned that in the PACT Act. You know, the rules are rigged against you. Make your own rules. You know, there's always a path.
yep.
And I think we've done that. So thank you for that work, Derek.
Honored. Been an absolute pleasure to do all this, and this is an awesome team that we've got to get this fixed. So, great job to everybody. And I think if anybody wants to do anything, call or email and message and post online. Thank V. Secretary Collins, and thank the man that wrote "Save a Horse, Ride a Cowboy." So that's all I've been listening to lately is Big and Rich. So that's my band right now. So.
Yeah, we're going to be playing him all day. And you know what? We are going to be celebrating this victory here on Memorial Day down in Nashville, Tennessee.
That's
we
right.
have rented out the Nashville Palace.
That's right.
And we've got some great bands there. We've got the Velvet Rodeo. We've got Savannah Ray. We've got some special guests that are going to be there. Right now, it looks like John Rich himself may make it.
Fantastic.
And,
wow.
We've got some other surprises up our sleeve that we're not quite telling yet.
Fantastic.
It's going to be taking place as well. But you can find out more about that under our events tab on gruntstylefoundation.org. You can get tickets there. They're very reasonably priced, and come and support the work of the foundation, because there's more battles ahead, everybody.
And there's a VIP package if you want to hang out with everybody.
There is. We're going to have a lot of influencers. Just go to gruntstylefoundation.org and check it all out, or check out our social media for the latest updates on what's happening down in Nashville. You coming, Todd?
I don't know, am I?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sounds like an invite.
Yeah, sounds like an invite. All right. Well, again, thank you to Derek. Thank you to the Grunt Style Foundation, of course, for all the work and investment in that initiative. And Derek will continue to do incredible things. And thank you so much, Todd, for joining us in the studio. It's been fantastic hanging out with you.
Good to see you again, brother. Come back soon.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we got you scheduled. I have you penciled in for a month out. You're not even aware of it yet.
That's fine. I'm probably free. I'm pretty sure I'm free.
Yeah. All right, brother. And check out tell us about the book a little bit.
Oh, so basically it's a rundown of my life from childhood to through the Marine Corps and life after the Marine Corps, when my life actually changed. Your Choices Change Lives is a tattoo that I actually had tattooed on my back before we left for Afghanistan as a squad leader, because I knew every choice that I was going to make there was going to change someone's life.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize exactly how much that was going to play into my actual real civilian life and my whole life as you look back on it.
Sure.
But the choices you make today are life changers for other people.
Absolutely. Thank you. Pick the book up. Thank you again, Todd.
Before we go, I got one more thing I want to say out there to everybody. Hey, folks here in Missouri, we are still involved in the hemp battle. We have had our big dispensary overlords that have been meddling with our politicians there in the Capitol, and we've basically destroyed the hemp industry if we don't do something about it. The House and the Senate both passed that bill. It's over to Governor Kehoe's desk. If you are a Missouri resident, contact your representative, contact the governor's office, and urge them to veto this Missouri hemp bill. It's doing nothing good. It's going to destroy the hemp industry here, and it's going to pay. All of our CBD products are now going to have to be sold out of marijuana dispensaries. So if you live in
to get CBD, you're going to have to go to a dispensary?
Yes, and if you're a hemp farmer that's producing CBD, they're going to crush you right out of business. And it's all in the name of the children. Once again, everybody, we got to try to save the children by destroying our industry and destroying our family farmers.
Yep, that sounds about right.
So that's a big thing. I guess that's kind of the last one. Last bit of business up is we want to give a shout out gratitude to CBD American Shaman, who is sponsoring the work that we're doing over on our integrations pillar.
Wonderful.
Of work, and we've got our integration event coming here in St. Louis, just north of St. Louis in Troy, Missouri, on the weekend of September the 19th. We will be getting tickets launched on that fairly soon, so keep paying attention to the Old Grunt Style Foundation social media, and we hope to see you there. We're going to bring in about 30 different practitioners of different holistic healing modalities, everything from horse equine therapy and cold plunges all the way down to the shamans coming out of the Amazon. We're bringing some of them up as well, and of course our friends the Lakota from Pine Ridge Reservation will be here. And
Oh, yeah.
we're just going to have a good time.
The Lakota bring the sweat lodge. If you want to know how to heal, that's how you meet anxiety head on, and you essentially surrender to it and then dissolve it. It's an unbelievable opportunity.
Yeah. So hope to see everybody there. And let's take us out there, Hugh, Todd.
Awesome.
Thank
Yep.
you all.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Stay waxed.
Have a great weekend.